PR Connections Radio presents.
Did you know your clothing could help balance your body's pH levels? Our cutting-edge fabric technology naturally promotes optimal pH balance, helping you feel energized, refreshed, and at your best every day. Use promo code PRTalk for more info. Tap the link in the description or contact our experts at 702-445-9488 to learn more.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Lisa Vasquez. I am your host, hosting the Liberating Menopause, and I'm so excited. I'm always excited because I get to talk to you. I get to talk to women in the workplace, and the conversations, they just populate so much out of our life. This menopause life, this mental change of life, I should say, because again, menopause isn't an age thing, and I really want to figure another way to say that because it incorporates so much. I mean, from menstrual cycle on, and there's so many changes, and there's so many identities, and there's so much that we lose on these roads. And so today, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about menopause and loss. It's not just about all the changes that we feel, because those are not lost. Those are just invitations to who we are inside, and meeting the changes of our body that we didn't recognize were actually growing and developing us and nourishing us, and we didn't have the correct responses back, like by eating good, sleeping well, and especially in the young ages too, because especially in our growing years, and young women, men too, males, but boys and young men, but girls mostly, because the minute we start to lose our identity is once we're around a lot of women, young girls, our friends, and things start changing, and each one of our girls, so you say, for instance, you have 5 friends, they're all coming from a separate adult individual life from somebody else, and they're bringing it to the crowd, and now they're re-identifying themselves, whether it was starting to wear makeup or changing their hair color or doing things that the next kid next to them isn't doing. So now she wants to go change that identity, and that's when we start to lose our identity, because now you're no longer that young girl who was just balled up with a scarf around her neck and all those things. Now you've relaxed yourself, you've opened up, the blouse has changed, and now you're looking a whole different way. And so now you're starting to develop, but you're going into these identities that, as I said, we came from a lot of identities of what we've seen, because, that's why today it's so hazardous to us as we look at Facebook and all these social media places where we're looking at people and looking at their identities, and we don't know them, but we want to be them and become part of that. Well, that's just the beginning of how our life starts to change. But as women, and as we grow up, and as we begin to come into family and, pregnancies, things like that, those stages are where we really begin to lose ourselves. Because, say, for instance, you're one of those high-grade stallions, you go out there, you identify yourself with all this radiance that's naturally coming from you, and you have it together, and everything is going good, and everybody looks at you, you open up those crowds, eyes pop at you, and everything is really cool. And now you go and you meet with somebody, a male companion, you have a new, now you're starting to change, because even though that's what captured him, things start to change, because now you want to tone down, you want to be ready to be closer to him, you want to start engaging in things that he's doing, and suddenly, again, this isn't who you were. You know that you've changed. And just for instance, I mean, I grew up in my 20s. I was a traveler. I identified I was always going out. I was a career woman. I already owned my home, my car. I had everything that I needed as a young woman, but actually a woman who's a little more mature than that, right? So when these things were given to me, I was standing there at a loss because I just graduated X-ray school, and I had to take off 5 years from my life. I had to start at 20 years old when I left a relationship that was culture lockdown is what I call it, because I became that, and I was submissive to that, and I had to grow up in these different ways that the culture was driving us. But I had a little more rebellion because I was becoming very liberated. Now here I am at 20, and the world just got really big because now I'm no longer, captured in identities with a relationship or my family parents, or now it's me. And, you can't wait kind of for those 21-year-old IDs and things like that. Well, I didn't have to worry about that because we were using fake IDs at the time. We didn't have pictures on the IDs, so it was easier. And my sister was 4 years older than me, so that was easy to capture a different identity. But here you are now, and I was at a loss because the world is big. I have all this, and what do you do with it? I'm looking at myself like, wow, these are things 50-year-old, 40-year-olds capture. And this is what I'm thinking in my 20-year-old mind at the time. Like, okay, but I have it all now, so what am I going to do with it? And I had to take a break. So I took 5 years, and I always had 5-year goals. So 20 to 25, it was a different kind of goal because I had to rediscover who I am. Who am I in all this? Who am I going to be? That's the next step of what we don't really know, because we're becoming, but what? Where are we headed? So far, I know I'm an X-ray tech, right? And I know I like to go out and dance. I'm partying. I'm having fun with my friends. And again, now I have this house and I have this car. So now these are starting to portray me as this kind of image of this girl who has it all together. But really, behind that closed door, do I really have it all together, or am I crying because of the loneliness, because I don't really know how to step out there and be who this identity is introducing me out there into the world? Well, now, because I personally biologically did not have children, I went out and had an interview with a woman who's grown up now, in her 60s. But I needed to talk about life, about what do we leave behind? What happens to us? What do we lose? And, one of the big losses she was telling me about is the identity once, you start to have children, because of your whole image that changed. Remember, you were that dynamic stallion, now you're with that guy. And now, of course, you're in love and you're getting married, and now you're about to have children. And here the identity for you starts to change, because now you will no longer just be yourself. You will become mom. And what does that incorporate? Everybody has to learn how to be mom. And so by going through these challenges of losing that identity, because the time is no longer yours, because even if it was time to go do your makeup or go do your hair, well, the baby's crying and all these other things are going to take place first, right? So all that gets put to the side. And so she was saying sometimes in this conversation that, this is why people who would never have stepped out in their jogging outfits, no makeup, hair pinned up, jumped in the car, get the child to school or to daycare, whatever they had to do, they changed their whole identity, right? Because that's not exactly how they would have ever thought that they would see themselves going outside. But now they have, and that part of their identity has changed. So, that is a big part. And then now we're going to talk about, the man in your life who has portrayed and became everything that you thought was supposed to be there. But suddenly now, for instance, there's some imbalances that are starting to show up. they say when you get married, you meet 7 other people in both sides, my side and my husband's side, right? And there's 7 other identities that we have to meet. And so in those identities, because, we are raised to, the one main thing as a woman that I discovered through this conversation was the main part that we keep in ourselves is the fighting part. We are fighters, we usually are. And for us to get through these things, we have to fight through it, right? Because we have to figure new things out. We have to figure out new identities, because now the circumstances at the moment have changed. And but because of those circumstances, the road to finding the true you will be revealed in how we're dealing with this life pattern that we're going through. But understand now, I haven't even put the part about we're working in this, because right now we're just at home and these are the things that are taking shape at home. We're learning in this new relationship that, you had planned to have this great relationship, grow in it, develop companionship and all those things. And then you find out that, again, there's some missing links that are taking place here. And, that can be, say, for instance, some of my patients, when I had talked to some of my, I don't know how to say that, senior women, older women, elder women, in their relationships. And this is like the 80s and 90s, and they were talking about their husbands who would have PTSD. These were things that were behind closed doors, right? When they come out, they're this way, but when they're back home, these are new challenges that the woman has to deal with because of the nightmares that are taking place in the middle of the night, the shifts that are changing in her world, because, she doesn't know what to do. And sometimes in those moments, the husband doesn't even identify you as the wife because of that PTSD being so strong in their mind of where they're headed in this imbalance that's taking them through the night. And so, my patients would tell me about how, they would have to really, really have to hunker down and really be supportive because, they love the guy, they want to be there, but now they have sometimes, there's some fear that can exist in that. And they're still going to stay, but they have taken away from themselves because now they're dealing with this. So, and that can go for like alcoholism also. So the woman I was speaking to, she had to deal with that. And then she told me how, you know how to deal with certain things one way, but now you have to go educate yourself and go capture and understand that imbalance so you could be supportive. And remember now, you still have children in the mix. And with that identity, you're hiding the fact that, things could be falling apart right now because you're in a moment of trying to survive and hold on and be part of the relationship and support the husband and fix it and make it right. And so is this your true self? And it's not. It's a sense of that's where our fight comes in. And that's, again, where I was saying that the main part of us is our fight, because we went to go to the Al-Anon classes to go learn about how to identify with this situation, this illness that the husband's having. And now you have to become somebody else in that uniform. So there's so many different identities that we wear in the house. And that has actually suppressed who you really are, because that wasn't who you were. You used to just walk in the room and be you. And the true you is no longer there. You are now mom. You are now a guest at the Al-Anon class. You are now the woman who, right before she's going to go to bed, trying to figure it all out, because that's what we have to do. We have to figure it all out. And every day of our life is a surprise, right? When we have children, we have relationships, when our husbands have imbalances. And a lot of these things don't show up till later, because They could have a history of alcoholism and never touched it. Suddenly they did, and suddenly now, they're becoming susceptible to the alcohol. Or, they have a lot of surgeries and now they have to take a lot of pain meds. And so that's another identity. And all these things start to change as we mature in these relationships, in the growth of aging also, because this is a lot where that happens. So every day is a surprise with a husband, with a child. You wake up and not knowing what your day is going to be like. And again, I haven't put the part about working in there because we don't know what that day is going to be like. We already know what the night brought through, and I'm hoping you had joy in the morning. But if it's still lingering through that night that you had just shifted through, here you are, you're getting up, and now you have to carry this into the job for the next 8 hours and become none of that, because that can't be taken to work. You have to put the uniform on, put the badges back on, put the leadership title back on, and go and do that position or what you're there for, right? And all these things are in your mind, and in this cognitive change, you're dealing with a lot of brain fog, a lot of anxiety is increasing because of the hormonal estrogen and progesterone shifts that are fluctuating and taking place. You wake up not knowing what your day is going to be like. And then you figure out how to end that day, whichever way it is. What do you call that? How do we connect to that, to where is the real you in that, fighter, just figuring it all out, thinking that, we had certain ways that through our family relations, what we grew up with, we kind of had some answers, but they didn't work. And now we have to begin to figure new ways out. And here we are again, re-identifying ourselves to learn. There's so much loss and there's so many things that we have to learn. And this is where we put ourselves to the side. And this is why, as we go through these changes of the cycle in our lives and create these changes, the ingredients and things that we can keep in to hold on to ourselves is going to be a big factor in how you come out of these things. Because if at this point, it has turned you bitter and angry and upset and disappointed and sad and lost in all these details of what life is when you get out of work. And then sometimes it has to do with the job also, because you have to come to work. You weren't having a good day. The boss is mad at you. You don't want to walk in their path. You have challenges with, female workers that you're there with, because everybody has a menstrual cycle. So everybody has a different emotion at that time. So everybody's going through different fluctuations and changes. So it's not always just because the relationships at work don't work. Everybody has so many, this big backpack that they got to unload at the door, because now they have to come into work, but it's still there. And it's still waiting for them. And then, when they go out for lunchtime, they pick it up and put it back on, call home, check things out, look these up, try to find help, figuring out these other things. And they don't even have time to identify themselves, to have that lunch period and have a mental moment to think, because lunch, that hour really goes fast, doesn't it? I mean, and it's worse for people who only have 30 minutes. But that hour, boy, the minute you step out, those minutes are just going, right? So to even think of trying to figure some problems out that you still have to deal with at that time. I mean, can we really just take that break and just try to, concentrate on ourselves? I mean, to build up some more of that cognitive change that's taking place, that difficulty on concentrating. It can be so unsettling for women who identify as competent and sharp in their profession and personal life, right? But these challenges can make you question your capabilities, feel like, are we losing our mind? I mean, really, are you really losing your mind? Because, you really thought you had it all together and you thought this could really work. And now you find out that everything that you dreamt to be in this relationship, whatever that was, it's not panning out that way. But now you're in, and these are the things that you have to do. And these are the things that you're going to have to surrender to. And that's not even when you come back to the emptiness side of things. When you lose yourself, there's so much trial and error that you have to go through just to reconnect and reinvent. When I was having this conversation with this woman, she was telling me, I mean, because in the past, our whole lives, to get married was to do certain blood tests and things to see about their compatibility. But she had mentioned to me, and I thought it was pretty interesting, because mental health is such a big issue. We will be getting into more of that in this conversation with menopause, because it's so important, and because right now the season's about to change, and those things are about to build even stronger as school begins. Holidays are coming, a lot of school sports and activities and things that we have to get into, besides all these different veils that we wear, until we can really take off the true veil and see the true you. And every time, if you could just take a peek at one of those looks, just to see, are you still there? Does anybody really know that I've changed? Can it be seen? Is it seen in how I'm acting? Is it seen in my attitude? I mean, I know I wasn't in a good mood today, and that one customer that was on the phone, I wished I didn't say that to her, but it just caught me at the wrong time. And sometimes the pot is boiling so much inside of us that we can't help that some of this stuff starts to overboil, right? And sometimes it can just blurt out and just happen right wherever we're at. And it doesn't mean that it was that person that was meant to get it. But when you're in the workplace and you're with people, peopling, growing up 8 hours a day in a new family that you only get to know on these daily bases, but you have to eat with them, you grow with them, you have to work with them, you have to develop this relationship. And so now that's a whole nother identity and a whole nother way that we have to think about ourselves and figure ourselves out, because is that person at the front desk going to be okay? Is that medical office girl going to be responding okay? I mean, is that tech and MRI going to be available if I have any questions, because he's the only one that knows the job? There's so many different questions that you have to go through and identify and work with there. And again, then you're still standing there and you really believe that you really are all there. But honestly, when you step out of all that, and I could only vouch for that now, because so many people start to feel invisible, after being so sharp, you start to miss the woman you used to be, and you would want her back. And she is coming back, but she's coming back stronger. She's coming back with so much more wisdom. She's coming back with so much that she has gained on these roads that she was untethered from, the identity, when she didn't recognize herself anymore, all these things, because now you're in that second loss of the empty nest part, right? Because now when you become in the empty nest, you get to go do those nails that were chipping forever and you never had time to. Now you are in a self-care mode because you have more time for yourself, but it's still a slippery slope because you're still involved in a lot of daily changes that take place. You're emotionally adrift. You used to feel so sharp and grounded and purposeful, and now you feel lost because, again, in this conversation I was having with her, her dreams was she was going to have this kind of relationship and have this and have that. And when she came into this relationship, that's not how it panned out. It didn't pan out that way. And that's when you discovered all these disconnections from the roles and routines or the relationships that you were planning to create. And now everything has changed because the other side of that, whether it's the partner that you're with who has the complication problems, or it could even be you too, yourself. Suddenly, things at work, we're always sitting down, telling you those back problems, the sciatica that can happen, all these problems lead you to go get medications, right? And those medications are going to start transforming you, changing you. A lot of people do lots of caffeine during the day, and then when they get home, it's tired, they're drowning out, they're not, they don't really want to do anything at home, but there's so much to be done. And so to recapture this person that you were, that spunky person, the one that had it all together, the one that, you just didn't even know that while you were going through all these cycles and changes and fluctuations and all these modes, when it finally ends and you do begin to unpeel and really reveal yourself and find your true self, it's by speaking out in that true voice. I don't know if you've heard lately, there's a lot of women who are speaking post-menopause, right? And they're finding so much freedom in that. They have rediscovered themselves in that. And what they also rediscovered is their voice, is that they have more no's now instead of yeses. And yes, I'll do that. And yes, I'll do that. No, now they have their, where they draw the line. Now they can say no. And when I was thinking about that after, I retired for 2 years already, and postmenopausal, for probably 7, and just re-identifying and seeing that I don't think that we recapture the voice of no. I think that was always in us, but because we are who we are in our true selves now, we're not emotionally connected to the hormones that were either touching our hearts and saying, okay, I'll do it, even though we didn't want to. But it was an emotion, it was a hormone, and it was captured in that essence of that time. And suddenly now those are not the messengers that are reacting in you. This is all you, this is that true you, and this is that person you've been looking for and rediscovering. And when you feel that you're lost inside, when you feel that you're on these roads during this time in the workplace, at home, I mean, really, this is why meditation moments, and I know those are hard to capture, because to be yourself and take moments away to just hide in the corner and think for yourself, those are hard moments to capture. But if you can capture that, especially in today's world where all this technology is taking over, and we didn't used to think that way. We didn't have instant answers the way we do today. We used to have to figure things out. And so to come back to that part of you, to figure things out about yourself, of how to maintain yourself as you're going through this, of how to keep your peace alive while you're at work, while, because those are passing moments. They're there for 8 hours. Yeah, sometimes they can get you, leadership can be really challenging. I mean, they come in full of power and walk around and, everybody's kind of, oh no, the boss is in the house, she's, so then everybody takes cover and they do what they do and cover up their phones or put things away or, put the coffee away, whatever it is, because the power has walked into the house. And so now you have to change for that power, right? But where's your power in all of this? Being able to shine the light on yourself, for yourself. This is what's so important. It's the same way as we have to support our children throughout this life, right? Even though we have these dysfunctions, they don't know that because we're working really hard behind the scenes to cover that up. We're all still going through the class assemblies. We're applauding for the children. We're doing everything that we can to hide this from them, to even show that there's a dysfunction in the house, which sometimes today I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing anymore, because that's the way we grew up. We knew things were happening behind closed doors, but we didn't know what, and, everything was still, hunky-dory. So we're still living life. We're still going to school. We're still there. They're doing this. But actually, next thing you know, your family's having a divorce. And when you hear these things, I was 30 years old when my parents separated, and it broke me at 30 years old. So I could imagine how this would affect a child when they have to find out. But is it easier to let you know later on in life? I mean, this conversation is never easy, but it is a breakdown. It's so many people today are, engaging in the matrimonial ceremonies, but are you really ready to be a wife? And is he really ready to be a husband? Because of the technology, because of the changes, because of kind of how you met people. There's so much in our identities that to rewrite this whole conversation is just basically telling you about how to harbor yourself, to keep your peace, to, even though you have to take the child to, school, and you want to get up and just jump right in the car, just the way you look, if you could really take that moment just for yourself, because you have to remember that all this stuff will pile up on you later because you're burying yourself. It's like hoarding. You're hoarding all this stuff and covering yourself up, and you're getting buried in it. And then there's going to come a moment where you have to take it off and where are you? And the dreams that are not there no more, and all these visions and all these plans and all these things have to come back out of that, because you're still you, and this authentic you is still there. So by protecting that peace, which is most important, applauding for yourself is even more important. I know sometimes late nights, a lot of times women like to wait till everybody's sleeping so that they can do their own thing, right? Because the house is so quiet. I know I like that a lot because, I'm more creative at nighttime, but I discovered that the creativity isn't so much because it's the nighttime, and it's the quiet. It's the silence of actually the whole world, where we get to just start to think, and you can hear things a lot clearer, and you can hear yourself most of all. And those are the important times in this day and age today, especially if you're coming back from the 80s and 90s. We had the advantage of transitioning and living in two lanes because computer world was out in the 70s, right? And we weren't in touch with them strongly at the time. But as we did develop, we had to learn that to being connected to both worlds. And that's the advantage that we have today. I mean, of course, when I think of kids today who are not using their writing and they're only printing, we've taken something away from them. But I really believe that learning how to write is so important. And that's an identity that we had, again, something we've been fortunate for. So, but do you think that it's good that they don't know how to write and print and just print? Because one time, my grandson, he was cute, and I had to write something for him on a paper to go back to school with. So I had to answer it on the back, and I did, but I did it in writing. And so then I asked him about it, and he told me, well, the teacher and both of them didn't know how to read it. And I was just like, wow, that is like crazy. Really? She didn't know? So I didn't have an answer or response to that, but it was just really funny to know that, wow, because this is the world I come from. I didn't know, I had no idea, but it's true. And so, what about our Constitution? Everything that has been written in handwriting won't be legible to them. And so I'm not sure about that identity and how that goes, but, just being in our cycle, in our change, it doesn't have a clock. It doesn't, our cycle walks with us everywhere. It goes into the boardrooms, it goes into the break rooms, it goes on to the Zoom calls. It's reshaping how we as women engage with our roles, with our rhythm. And now that we're learning so much more about this rhythm in our cycle changes, things that weren't taught to me in my years, had it not been for the women I grew up with in radiology and seeing the shifts, seeing the disease, the disconnections in the body, all these breakdowns that take place. This is what helped me understand this cycle and life. And I could take you back down the lane and tell you about my 30s, tell you about my 40s, tell you about how I was in perimenopause. But at the time I couldn't have told you because I didn't know I was actually going through it. Just like a lot of other women today don't know that they're going through these changes. You could ask them, and the biggest thing is when they say I'm not there yet. We are all there. We've been there from the day the menstrual cycle started. So all these changes, they've always been there. It's just when you say that word menopause, people think, oh my gosh, that's that age thing. But it's not true because, in your cycle, in your fluctuations, you kind of go through those same changes. And again, it's a new discovery and conversation and education. And the more we get to learn this, the loss isn't just our hormonals, it's our professions. It's the fading of our once sharp cognitive clarity that we have. Isn't that something, because again, as you grow up and develop, and I know a lot of women in their 40s are having a lot of cognitive disconnections. I was laughing the other day, and this is not that it's a big joke, but I was wondering because so many more a lot of children that are left behind in the car. Well, the other day I left my husband in the car, and it was, for me, funny. I mean, it's not about the kids. I'm not saying any of that because that's a very important issue and that really shouldn't take place. But the thing is that I was out with him. I had to come into the house with the key to go open the garage door for him. And what did I do? I came in, I put things down, and I started doing things. And then it hit me. I was like, oh my gosh, I came in to go open the garage door. So when it hit me to go open the garage door, I turned around and he's already coming in with his front door key, coming in to go open the garage door. So for me, I was just like, oh my gosh, there's that moment, he has to understand because he's having them too. So it's just so funny. I mean, what do we do later? And these are things that, again, our parents didn't talk about that. I don't think my mother ever told me of a moment where she had a cognitive moment where the brain cell, I watch it like, a taping that keeps going, and all of a sudden the tape got stopped and then it kept going. And that's what was so funny for me was that, wow, I left my husband in the car. That is just like, I forgot he was out there because I was so busy and I wanted to just start doing what I'm doing, and that's what I did. So it's interesting because this happens to all of us. And depending on your age, where you're at, these are just small little signs that start to show up and develop. There's the clarity of, what about the discomforts of the uniforms? You could be in this one position in uniforms all the time, right? But this is where I say, do they know that I've changed? Does anybody really see me? Because gosh, this uniform is tight, it's hot, and I'm going through these changes. I mean, and I'm speaking for the women who are wearing uniforms like that, because especially in hotels, I'm from Las Vegas. And so, you see all this stuff and they're pretty locked in and tight, but do we see that she has changed? I mean, is there a way to put different levels for uniforms, because we are going to grow into this dedication to the job and loyalty for the next 30 years because we like it so much, right? But that means that, is it the same uniform? Is it going to change? Will they have a new way for me to dress when I'm in my 40s and my 50s and my 60s? Or do I still have to stay in that same uniform? And for instance, the last place I was at, I was there for 8 years. But, there's like so many shifts in ages there, right? I mean, from the front desk to the department to, all the techs in the department. I mean, we're all different ages, but we're all in the same uniform all the way through. This is what I was telling you that I hated. I hated it because it was like pajamas. And I'm here to work with women. And, I wanted to respectfully introduce myself as a woman to a woman. And instead, I'm a woman standing in pajamas. That's how I felt. I hated that uniform. So, honestly, when it was over, those uniforms, that was the first part of the celebration. Was no more uniforms. I mean, when I got to pick my own uniforms back in the day, because other, a lot of places have gone to specific uniforms. I mean, that's their thing, they'll provide them for you, but they have to be this and you can't wear anything else. Well, growing up in my whole career, it was just a beautiful thing because we got to wear our lab coats, we got to wear different, different uniforms, and we could adjust it to our age and maturity and as we're growing, and and today, those uniforms, there has to be they no longer feel right when the woman has matured into a different age. And so this is why I say, do they see me? Do they see that I've changed? Can they understand that? They pass by me every day. I'm sitting at this desk. They know it was my birthday and they know I'm not turning 21. So what are they thinking, right? But this is what I have to wear, and this is how they see it. And it's just hard. It's just really hard for us to, because of course, if we try to change that, there's penalties, right? Because it has to be a standard, and that's what uniforms are all about, being standard. This isn't just a conversation about symptoms, that's for sure, but it's about who we are and how do we return back to our true selves. And the way we do that is by trying and working hard to maintain who we are as we go through this, because this is a passing time. And I know that young people today don't see aging like it's gonna flash through, but it really, really does. And they're not kidding when they say that, and I'm not kidding when I'm saying it, because when I think of how old I am today, I'm like, wow. When I think of how I stepped out of work and still maintain who I am, how I look. And, I was a 15-year-old girl who wanted to be that Noxzema girl. I wanted to be all natural. I wanted to, as long as you could hold out. And, I'm pretty happy with these decades that I've been able to hold out, come through and develop and be who I am today, stepping out, having my voice, speaking. And this is why I want to say, because the workplace doesn't hear us and they don't see us that way. They see our production, but I want them to see us, because if they can see us, we can give back so much more because of the gratitude, because of the gratefulness, because of, wow, check that out. I get to move into a new uniform. They're going to loosen it up for me. Something's going to change. Something's going to give. Well, I hope you like hearing about this one today, because, there's so many pieces that creates a feeling of brokenness. And it starts in the home, the relationships, things that we do, but it's the recipe that we create in this bowl of our life. All the ingredients we're putting in there. And what we don't want to put is anything spoiled, rotten, ugly, negative, something that's really going to deem us to be bitter, angry, because unfortunately, again, on the road in this cycle, this is what happens to women. Sometimes when they unwind out of it, they come out in an angry side of them. And it's always going to be hard to understand why somebody would be that way, but hormonally and how they were nourished and how you were taking care of yourself and things like that, if we only knew a long time ago what we're learning today, we may have a better chance at making it a happier ending for that day that I told you. It's full of surprises. It's totally full of surprises. And how we end it every day, how you wake up, not knowing what your day is going to be like. And then you have to figure out how to end that day which is whatever way it can end in the best way for you. So with that, I want to end today's episode with just opening up, keeping the peace, and remembering yourself. Just like you have to remember a lot of other things. Don't forget who you are, and don't forget about your dreams. And even if you have to write them once a year to yourself, just to remind yourself, even have to look in the mirror and just reflect back and remind her who she is. Even if nobody else notices, she's changed, because we've changed. And that's why they came out with "We've come a long way." We really have. And it's to be in a better way. And this is the way and the road in the workplace that I would like you to come out of, so that, again, we could have a good time in that pension, on vacation, being with friends that you grew up with, that are maintaining themselves and developing themselves on the same way. Because so many people drop off along the way, and then suddenly you're standing there and there's not a lot of people to hang out with, because a lot of your people have gone. So because of, the loss of themselves, giving up on themselves, the loss of hope. And hope is everything. Hope is what floats the boat, right? All right, everyone. Thank you. Until the next episode, I'm looking forward to that. You're going to really like this next one. It is going to be the housewife of working in the workplace. Housewife in the workplace. I'm looking forward to talking and having that interview. So stay tuned. And again, prconnectionsradio.com. Thank you for liberating menopause, giving me the voice. Lisa Vasquez, your host. Bye.
This podcast is brought to you by Envision U. Envision U has discovered how to impact spirit, body, and soul with spray technology in just 30 seconds. With Envision U, you can achieve optimal health and start living the life you have always dreamed of. Use the promo code envisinu.com/VernDix to take control of your health naturally. PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching this podcast. Check out more episodes of this show and our others at prconnectionsradio.com.